Today we're going to talk about whether you should keep your home, turn it into a rental, or sell it. Which one makes the most sense? Hi there, I'm Lisa Carroll with Team TLC Mahara and Associates. We're a group of realtors here in the Tampa Bay area, and we produce this channel to educate the public about fun things to do in our area, real estate in our area, and just the general, state of the market, I guess you'd say. So I've been a realtor here for about 30 years, and today we're going to talk about a question that we're asked quite often, which is, should I keep my home and turn it into a rental, or should I sell it? And this is a great question. So a lot of people think, I should keep my home, turn it into a rental, and build equity, and let the renter pay my mortgage. That's a great theory. It's a great idea. But there's a little more to consider than that when you're trying to make the decision. So if you own a property, and let's just say you own a property here in Florida, and you've owned it for just a short period of time, maybe a year or two, you didn't put too much down on it, and you don't have a lot of equity in it. So the cost to sell the home might leave you with very little in your pocket once the sale is finished. You've got to pay realtor fees, title insurance, doc stamps, and pay off your mortgage. So if you were to sell the home, you may end up with very little in your pocket. So the question then becomes, if you're not going to really make anything on the sale, would it make sense to turn it into a rental? So that is a great question. So with very little equity in the home, turning the home into a rental could be a good possibility. So the things to consider with that are, do you really want to manage a rental? So it does take time and effort, even if you have a management company helping you. So we as a team actually manage about 25 rentals right now for other investors. And we do take a lot of the weight off their shoulders. We find the tenant, we screen the tenant, we prepare the leases with an attorney. We handle a lot of the problems, and then if there's repairs needed or things that, go wrong during the term of the lease, we help handle those things. So it takes a lot of weight off the shoulders of the investor, but there are still things you have to make decisions on, and it does take some time. So you will have to devote some time. Are you willing to devote that time to the management of your rental? Secondly, something to consider is, it's not always feast in the rental market. It's been that way for the last couple of years. It's been amazing. Rental prices are high. It's great for landlords, but it's not always going to stay the same. There's going to be ups and downs in the rental market, just like there are in the real estate market. So a lot of times when prices come down, rents will come down. If there's a lot of homes available, the supply and demand can be a problem if you're a landlord and you have a home for rent and there's 10 other homes for rent just like yours. So you have to consider the fact as to whether or not you're willing to take the risk, because there is risk. There's risk with anything in real estate, but with a rental, you have the risk of vacancy, or, major repairs that might need to be done, or damage that could be done by a tenant, or, that kind of thing. Vacancy is really the biggest one. So if your home sits vacant for a month or two and you have to make those payments, do you have the money in the bank, and would that put a big strain on you? That's a good question to ask yourself. So if you have extra money, extra income, and that would not stress you out, yes, you can let the tenant live there and pay off your mortgage. And eventually, real estate prices always go up. So your home will increase in value, and eventually you will have more equity in it and you could sell it. Now, if you have equity in the home, let's say over $100,000 equity in the home, then you have to really look at what is the return on your investment for that. So if you leave the $100,000 sitting in the home, and let's say you're only making $100 a month on the rental after your expenses. So if you're making $100 a month, that's $1,200 a year, but yet you've got $100,000 tied up in that property. I know you could do a lot better with that $100,000, putting it into something else that was more profitable. So that's something you really need to think about. And now if you have a lot of equity in the home, let's say you have $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 in equity in the home, then you really need to think about that even more so. So if you have $300,000 or $400,000 and you're making $500 a month profit on the rental, and let's say you're making $6,000 a year, that's your return on your investment of that money that's sitting there as equity. So could you take that money out, sell that home, and then maybe buy something cash where you're going to make a lot better return on your investment? So those are things you really need to think about when you're considering whether or not it's a good time, to sell it or rent it. Another thing to consider too is the capital gains tax. So, when you sell a home that you've lived in, there are rules and regulations. So please don't quote me. I'm not a CPA. Definitely talk to your CPA before you make these decisions. But if you've lived in a home for the last 2 of 5 years and it can be considered a primary residence, sometimes you don't have to pay the capital gains tax. And the capital gains tax of selling a rental is quite steep. So, you can end up, paying the IRS quite a bit of money as opposed to if you sold the home while it was your primary residence and not having to do that. So those are all things you really need to think about. I hope you really found this helpful. I would love to hear any questions or thoughts you have about the subject. Please comment below and let me know what other topics you'd like me to talk about. I would love it if you'd subscribe, ring the little bell, so you'll be notified of our future videos. And I'll see you soon. Ciao for now.